Wait, why is Fast Car driving an SUV? No, we haven't grown up and all got sensible cars. This is the Cupra Ateca, and this one is the limited edition ABT, which means you get 350 horsepower instead of the standard 300 horsepower, and means you can actually go somewhere, as we'll demonstrate now. So you get the standard EA AAA engine Gen 3, which powers pretty much every VW. This one has been, as I just said, ramped up to 350 horsepower. You get 324 pound-feet of torque over the standard 295 pound-feet, and it really just wakes the car up. The regular Cupra Ateca is a little bit, I wouldn't say sluggish, but it feels a little bit lazier in the mid-range, whereas this picks up about 40 newton meters from 2000 RPM all the way up. Now, as I mentioned, this is the limited edition version of the Cupra Ateca, which was the first product of the new Cupra brand, which come about a few years ago when Seat decided that Cupra should sit by itself. Yes, it doesn't really make sense to us, but it doesn't seem to have harmed sales. The Cupra Ateca's sold very well across the UK. Now, just before it's getting its facelift, it's come out with the latest limited edition model, which gets 20-inch wheels all round. You get the copper Cupra sort of branding on them too, instead of the 19s on the regular model. You also get a little lip spoiler, which is carbon fibre at the back. You get the quad exhaust, which this time is Akrapovic. Now, there's only 100 limited edition Cupra Atecas in the UK, and 20 of which have the Akrapovic exhaust, which is a roughly £3,000 option, which isn't cheap. But hopefully you're getting this over the mic as well. You're getting nice pop and crackle. And also, that four-wheel drive system has so much grip. Even in the wet, you can drive 90% full throttle pretty much everywhere without panicking, easily eating up the undulations in the road. As with all modern cars, you get a number of different drive modes, and here we've got 6 for some reason, all ranging from comfort right up to snow mode in this. So you have the snow mode obviously for the 2 or 3 days of snow we get in the UK. You get an off-road mode, which probably won't ever be used by anyone who buys one, but it's nice to know it's there. Cupra mode, which has everything turned ramped up to 10, pretty much a mode for track use, although we're in an SUV, so you wouldn't really use it on track. I've used it on the road, Cupra mode, the whole time, and it's pretty much the best mode to be in. Dampers are a little bit stiff in this mode, but it does ride the bumps really well, and that's partly because of the actual ride height itself, and also because these limited edition buckets in place, they're stunning, finished in blue Alcantara, and they're super comfy as well. It's probably the comfiest bucket seat I've actually sat in. The other modes include individual, which you can obviously set up how you want. You've got the engine, you can change the adaptive suspension and the steering. Comfort, which obviously dials everything down, and sport, which I think is a bit redundant, because in sport you have quite a sharp throttle response like you do in Cupra, and you have fairly stiff damper settings, but you have the exhaust valves closed until you reach a certain RPM. To be honest, it doesn't feel much comfier than Cupra mode. Now, there are a couple of things I don't like about this, and one of which can be fixed fairly easily, and it's the paddles themselves on the wheel. I find this with the Golf R as well, they're too far inwards that I can't reach around to grab the paddle easily enough, and they're so small that on first glimpse you can't actually see they're there, and also when you're going around a corner you can't find where the paddle has gone, so if you need to change down or change up, you can't. You're clambering around the wheel trying to find it, which is quite frustrating, especially when other SUVs, like the slightly more expensive Stelvio Quadrifoglio, has huge aluminium paddles. As I mentioned, it's easy to rectify. You can buy clip-on plastic paddles which extend it, which means you can grab them a bit easier. Speaking of aftermarket parts, EA AAA, I'm going to mention it again, but we all know how tunable this engine is. Packages from the likes of MRC, VRS, Revo, ABT themselves, I mean, there's so many tuners out there. Now, the benefit of the ABT pack, which is installed here, is that you get the warranty still. So it doesn't affect the 3-year Cupra warranty that you get from the factory, which is a positive pretty much for most people buying a new car today, because most people are either leasing or PCP rather than buying outright. And now, on the topic of PCP and leasing, I did do a quick finance calculator on Cupra's website, and it's not cheap. I mean, this car retails at about 45,000 with the Akrapovic exhaust, And if you wanted a PCP deal over 3 years and with a £5,000 deposit up front and 10,000 miles a year, you're going to be paying around £630 a month, which is expensive. Stepping into the territory of the Mercedes and BMW, the higher end products. Enough of that boring stuff, let's actually go for a drive, shall we? Now, as I mentioned, there is so much grip on offer from the four-wheel drive system, and thankfully we've got nice Brembo brakes up front to help us stop when we get to a corner, because it does weigh over 1,600 kilos. Now, Cupra does quote that with a driver, so weight is not too bad for an SUV. The mid-range is where this thing comes alive because it pulls all the way to 6,500 RPM. I know peak power finishes off about 5-ish, but there's no noticeable drop-off towards the red line. Yeah, this chassis is nice. Cupra has really worked on this chassis, actually. And you can chuck it in with quite precise steering at the front and be really aggressive with the throttle and get loads of grip on the way out as well. I think my favourite feature has to be the Akrapovic exhaust, because it adds in a little bit of drama that's otherwise missing from the whole drive, and does turn a few heads when people see a big grey SUV coming towards them and then they hear the pops, they're thinking, well, where's the sports car? And here it is. This is it. This is your 350 horsepower SUV that can live with a sports car on a back road. With it being an SUV, you get the added practicality. There's loads of room in the back. We've got a nice big 9.2 inch colour screen in the centre with gesture controls, so you can jump in with your hand and it brings up the menus. You can swipe songs across to change the song. It's a bit temperamental. I did notice when I was trying to change songs, I was going over and over and over again to try and do it. But once you get the knack of it, it works quite well, and it's quite a neat touch. Now, could this be the only car you own, in the sense that it's the fun weekend car, it's the car you get up on the Sunday to drive, it's the car you take shopping, it's the car you take on holiday with the family? Yes, it can, in a word, yes. But it's not the best on the market for doing so, and I think the smaller Cupra Leon with the ABT does as good a job and is slightly more fun to drive. It's a difficult one. I mean, I do love this car though, and the way it covers ground. Yeah, I think it probably could be the car I own, actually. And the missus likes it as well, and she wants to keep it. So, sorry Cupra, we're going to keep this one.